Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about XRP. If you guys like the content, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. We're going to be looking at it from a more data science, quantitative finance point of view. So if you guys like that, please give the video a thumbs up, turn on your notifications, let me know what you guys think. Now, before we begin, I realize that a video on XRP is naturally going to ruffle some feathers. I'll first go ahead and say I do not own any XRP right now. We're just looking at the market. It's it's number 3 on in terms of market cap for all the different cryptocurrencies that are out there. So I don't want to pretend that it doesn't exist. I want to at least look at the charts. From my own experience, a lot of people do own XRP. They have a bag of it. Most people have at least 20 because they probably purchased it at some point, and then you have 20 XRP stuck in some wallet somewhere. But you have to consider the fact that while you might not like XRP, and while I personally don't own XRP right now, there are a lot of people out there that are interested in the charts just because maybe they bought it at the worst possible time, and they're just watching the valuation go down and down and down. So I just want to give you my thoughts on XRP, kind of why I don't currently own any XRP, and then tell you what I would need to see happen for me to even really consider getting back into it. But I just want to kind of clarify everything. So if you're just fuming right now, you just push the vein in your head that's popping out, just push it back in. Just try to relax, and we're just going to go through this step by step so that you can just see, look at the chart. And if it makes you feel any better, you could just pretend like this is something else. Maybe it's not XRP versus Bitcoin. Maybe it's some other random coin that, there's a lot of coins that do have these, kind of they oscillate with respect to Bitcoin. In a certain window, they don't really trend up. They don't necessarily trend down over the macro scale, but they just kind of oscillate in a window. So what we're looking at here is the valuation of XRP with respect to Bitcoin. This is a logarithmic scale, so we're going 10 to minus 5 to 10 to minus 4. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to highlight in general when XRP tends to see these massive moves up, because regardless of whether you like XRP or not, in terms of cryptocurrency moves, it tends to see some of the quickest moves out there. And some of the highest price or percentage increases in some of the shortest periods of time. And while it hasn't happened in a little while now, it hasn't happened in a few years, you can just go back and look at its history and see that it happened in 2015, it happened in 2017, and then it happened again at the end of 2017 going into 2018. So it's definitely happened. The question, right, is will it happen again? And that's ultimately the question that everyone wants to know. I personally take the position. I'm not trying to pretend like I'm altruistic in the sense that blockchain has to be adopted by everyone. My main focus is this is not financial advice, obviously, but my main focus is to make money. And if that means sitting on a coin for a few weeks that I really don't fully understand the purpose of it, and it can perform well, then so be it. I don't really care. So this is why we're gonna talk about XRP here. So if you look, you can see that there are key times, and we're gonna go over what triggered this move, okay? Because this was a very serious downtrend. These are serious downtrends where Bitcoin is gaining valuation against XRP by an order of magnitude. I mean, XRP, the valuation against Bitcoin is going from 10 to the minus 4 to 10 to the minus 5. And we tend to, if you just strictly only sold XRP in this valuation region, and you just strictly bought XRP in this region, then you would actually be doing quite well. XRP is not a coin, and I mean it's almost assuredly not a coin you want to be holding during a bear market or during an accumulation phase. It's just not, and you can look at the history to see why that's the case. It just tends to bleed during those years. It only sees moves up when Bitcoin is getting to, say, key milestones in its own valuation. This is usually what triggers an XRP move, okay? Now, if we draw these other lines on here, there are times where you really can see these dips below. So when we get below these lines, you can kind of see a dip below to the bottom, kind of our last capitulation against Bitcoin over here in 2014, and then again over here in 2016 and 2017 against Bitcoin before a move up. Now, the thing is that going to happen again? So I personally, like I said, I don't hold any XRP. If that means that I miss out on a move that XRP has, then so be it. If you hold XRP, I wish you a good mission, and I wish you the best on that mission. However, I'm pretty risk averse to coins that are bleeding like this. Okay, I tend to focus on coins that are not just constantly bleeding with respect to Bitcoin, and the only way that my risk aversion would start to drop a little bit on it would be if we were to get into this region back over here, because I can just look on the chart and say, you know what, I understand there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt related to XRP, but just looking at the data, and the data is what I go off of. I try to tune everything else out just because I frankly don't care about it. I just look at the data and I say, you know what, while this is really a tough trend to look at, and I cannot imagine trying to catch this falling knife, this is a big if we were to drop into this region down here, then maybe it becomes worthwhile to at least consider having a position at that point, because if you had done that the last 2 times it went to that region, you would have almost instantly seen a 10x valuation increase against Bitcoin. So I want you guys to be prepared, because if this ever does happen, I want you to know where I stand on it, okay? Not that it's like a secret or anything, but just know that this is what I'm looking at, and this is why I don't currently own any XRP. You can see that in 2017, there's no secrets, the valuation came back down to this point. It did not come back into the green region, but it went back up, and this was during a bull run. So during the bear markets, though, it really doesn't tend to fare that well. So one of the things I wanted to address is, well, what can we expect to maybe happen? And one of the things, I mean, it's possible that we kind of come back down to this region where we held support at in the past, and then we kind of bounce back up, and then ultimately see a longer or a larger move sometime later in maybe 2022, 2023. Now, if you're not familiar with the channel, we talk about lengthening cycle theory. I think all the evidence supports that lengthening cycle theory is a thing. It's going to take a lot more momentum, a lot more volume to really push Bitcoin up that scale than it ever has in the past. And it's just harder and harder to just continue pushing the price up orders of magnitude. So with that said, I do think that we're experiencing lengthening cycles, and I think that we're also experiencing diminishing volatility and diminishing ROI. So your return on investment is going to be less, most likely, in a lot of these coins than it would have been had you invested in, say, 2015 and 2016. That's just the cold hard truth. Doesn't mean you can't theoretically make a lot of money. It just means you just need to know this. You need to have this knowledge in your head, because if you don't, and you anticipate that it has to continue going up like it did last time, then you might see your profits just kind of come and go, as that's probably happened before. So another option is maybe seeing something like this happen. And the reason why something like this could theoretically happen, and I'm not even saying it has to go all the way down here, I just randomly drew a line. But if it were to come into this green band at some point, what would 10 to the minus 5 represent? Well, if Bitcoin were to go to 20K and XRP were to stay at 20 cents, well, then the ratio would be 10 to the minus 5. So you can get the sense that, okay, well, if Bitcoin makes that move and XRP kind of stays humdrum at 20 cents, then the valuation of XRP against Bitcoin could easily get into this regime over here. Now, there's no guarantees that we ever make it back to that point. Again, we might, XRP could easily come down here and then and make a move, or it could just continue to bleed forever and go to zero. I mean, this is a possibility, and you need to be prepared for that possibility becoming a reality. A lot of coins in crypto are ultimately, I think, going to trend to zero over the long haul. The question is can you make money by speculating on them in the meantime? And so, and I'm not saying XRP is going necessarily to zero. I'm just saying that for any coin out there, you have to consider that as a potential, as a non-negligible possibility. So, if Bitcoin were to go to 20K and XRP were to stay at 20 cents, then coming into this region down here, is what would happen. I mean, that's just what the math says. Now, if that were to happen, then I might start to take a second look at it and say, you know what, we're back in this region. Maybe it's time to reconsider. One of the things I wanted to show you guys is this chart, and I've shown this before. This is modern portfolio theory. I ran it for Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and Litecoin. We're just basing it on historical returns and historical volatility to identify the efficient frontier, which is from this minimum volatility point here up this curve. The efficient frontier, I should first say that each dot you see on this chart is a random portfolio weighting of Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and Litecoin, and I ran 100,000 simulations. The portfolios that exist on the efficient frontier have the highest expected return for a given volatility or risk level. Okay, and on this curve, by the way, this curve down here would more so be the inefficient frontier, because you really wouldn't want to have a portfolio down here that say only has an expected return of 40% annually if there's a 90% volatility, because for say a 90% volatility, you could be up on this curve and have an expected return based on historical data of 90%. That doesn't mean you have to see 90% annually. It just means so within one standard deviation or a 68% probability, your expected return is 90% plus or minus 90%. So between 0 to 180%, there's a 68% probability, and that's just because of how volatile cryptocurrency is. Now, the Sharpe ratio, what maximizes the Sharpe ratio, which is a point on this curve, I don't think I have it highlighted here, but what does maximize the Sharpe ratio in this scenario was around 60% Bitcoin and 40% Ethereum. And this is taking data from 2015 onward. So again, this is not an opinion, it's just a fact that if you're just basing it on historical returns and historical volatility, then there's really no reason to be holding XRP and Litecoin in your portfolio. And this makes sense. I mean, you can see the downtrend that XRP has been in for a long time. Having a short move up like this does not detract from the fact that it's been trending down for a long time. And this is why I say, if you're going to hold XRP, you really need to be better at timing those buys. XRP is not a coin that I think you should be holding for years and years and years. It's a coin that you want to buy it, and then, in a key region, and then if you see it pump up like 5 or 10x over the course of a few weeks, you would, this is when I would personally sell. I mean, this is not financial advice. It's just, this is what you need to consider. The data tells the story. Ben doesn't tell the story. I interpret the data the way I think it should be interpreted, but really the data is what is the one telling the story, and I'm just following where the data goes. You can see each of these pumps was followed by a very swift retracement. It wasn't as swift as say the move up, but it was a bleed over over a longer period of time. And this is why when looking at say the efficient frontier and modern portfolio theory, in order to maximize the Sharpe ratio, I know this says minimize, but in order to maximize the Sharpe ratio, you actually would not hold any XRP or Litecoin in your portfolio at the present time, if that makes sense. Now, I'm not saying that you should go sell your XRP or Litecoin if you hold it. I mean, if you've held it so far, I would hate for you to go sell it and then XRP pump tomorrow. But my point is if you haven't learned your lesson by now, then you need to learn it so that you don't continue making the same mistake. Now, I want to jump into something else here because there's a few things I want to talk about. So this here is just I just took a regression analysis of XRP. So this is what I would call maybe your fair valuation, your fair value trend line, and then this is our kind of like our overvaluation phase, and then this is our undervaluation phase. Okay, so first of all, I want us to zoom out a little bit. So if you imagine that, say this is our, and this by the way only goes back to 2014, but we know that the price data of XRP goes back further than that, but just on this chart it only goes back to that point. But you can generally see that overvaluation phase, and then that undervaluation phase that goes into the overvaluation phase, and then back down, okay, into the undervaluation phase. And we're talking about lengthening cycles, so it's probably, if we do see something like that, it might look something like this. Okay, I don't know exactly where it would necessarily peak, but I don't think if a lot of you are just married to the 4-year cycle theory and think that coins like XRP and all these other coins really have to start moving in 2021 for crypto not to be just dead or something, you really need to wake up because I would say stop just being spoon-fed that theory, because I really don't think that theory is at all accurate, and I think you're honestly being misled. And honestly, I think it's one of the biggest misconceptions in cryptocurrency is the notion of the 4-year cycle. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that so many people think this. And the reason I'm, pretty passionate about that statement is just all the discussions and all the comments I see about, oh, this doesn't make sense because Bitcoin has to peak in 2021 and the next peak can't be in 2023 because the halving's in 2024. I would say open your minds to the possibility that the 4-year cycle theory is wrong, and that maybe the next halving doesn't kickstart a new bull market, but maybe it helps curb the effects of the bear market. Okay, consider that as a possibility. Now we know for one that XRP would not follow this curve, so I can tell you for sure that I randomly drew this curve. It's not going to follow this curve. Why? Well, when XRP tends to move, it tends to bleed slowly. And then maybe at some key point it just shoots up, and then it maybe bleeds again, right? And then at some key point it shoots up. So this is one of those things that while I drew this curve, I certainly don't think that curve is representative of exactly what would happen. I'm just saying if XRP were to be along for the next bull market, which is a big if, we don't know if it will be or not. We don't even know if there's going to be a bull market, but if there is and XRP is along for that ride, then it would likely move at key milestones. Now, I drew this move in July 2021, but I actually think it would come somewhat later if we were to see a move where XRP, say, goes up by 10x in a short period of time. The reason is because if you look at the price of Bitcoin and you say, okay, well, when did XRP historically make its moves? Well, when Bitcoin, a lot of times we look at the 20-week moving average and Bitcoin getting above the 20-week moving average, and there have been a lot of coins that pump when that happens. XRP is not one of them. XRP has historically moved when Bitcoin gets to its previous all-time high. So if you just take a line and draw it across, you can see that more or less Bitcoin got to its previous all-time high in the first quarter of 2017. Okay? Well, what happened with XRP? In the first quarter of 2017, that's when XRP made its move. Okay? Now, if that's true, and Bitcoin is again going to get to its previous all-time high within this regression band, so if it stays within the regression band, because you can see that in the last cycle, Bitcoin got to its previous all-time high within the regression band, okay? So if Bitcoin were to follow this regression band for another 15, 16 months, it'll be at around 20K. When would that be? It would be in, say, December, late 2021, early 2022. So I think there's a good chance that Bitcoin stays within this band for another 15 months. Of course, it's possible we poke out of it, just like we did in 2019, but I don't think it would be sustainable over the long run. I think we need to spend a lot more time kind of just slowly moving up the curve, just like we did in 2015 through even part of 2017. I think we need to slowly kind of work our way back up to 20K, and then once we get to that point and break it, then Bitcoin goes more so parabolic. So just taking a line here at 20K, drawing it out, and then anticipating that the price of Bitcoin stays within this regression band, and then ultimately gets to say 20K at this point over here, then maybe it starts to go parabolic and sets its sights on 100K. And if that were to happen, then and Bitcoin gets to its previous all-time high, and then if XRP valuation against Bitcoin goes back to 10 to the minus 5, then maybe the stars will align, and it might be worth considering picking up some XRP at that point. So this is generally what I wanted to talk about with respect to XRP. I get that a lot of people are very they don't like XRP. They don't want to hear talk about it, and that's fine if you don't appreciate the video. But I do think there's a number of you out there that you either hold XRP and you're proud of it, even though it's been bleeding for a long time, or it's cool to hate XRP, so you publicly hate it, but secretly you hold a stash of it. So I know there are a lot of people that does describe a lot of people. Again, I don't currently hold it, and what would make me hold it would be what would make me consider holding it would be Bitcoin getting to its previous all-time high, the valuation of XRP getting back to 10 to the minus 5 or lower, and then it would be a consideration. Until then, I just think I don't really want to try to catch this falling knife And again, if that means missing out on a move in the short term, then so be it. I'm completely fine with that. But that's generally my thoughts on the market with respect to XRP. So if you guys like the content, please go ahead and subscribe. We do have a premium list where I post a lot of extra content. You can find it at intothecryptoverse.com. You can see that website here, intothecryptoverse.com. We have a premium newsletter every single week. We have a premium video every single week. We have a trading or a Telegram alerts channel where I put out like my analysis on different, not only cryptocurrency, but other markets as well. And we also have a Google Sheets dashboard with various risk levels for a lot of different coins. I don't currently have XRP on there. I do have the risk metric for it. If enough of you guys are interested in it, I can add it on there with obviously some of the disclaimers in terms of how to interpret it. But please check intothecryptoverse.com out if you want access to this type of analysis. I look at things from a more, again, data science, quantitative finance perspective. It's not your traditional technical analysis. So please check it out. And then finally, if you want to discuss these charts, you want to chat with me, then you can obviously leave a comment down below. But I do have a public Telegram channel. We're over 4,000 people. We do try to keep the Telegram channel, pretty clean, high-level conversations. Adults who can speak to other adults in a decent manner. It's not tolerated if you're going to act out of line. So if you find yourself wanting a crypto community to talk about these charts with, then please check out my Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. That'll wrap it up for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. I'll see you next time. Bye.